Welcome, everyone. I'm Mark Brohan, Senior Vice President, B2B and Market Research at Digital Commerce 360, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. So first and foremost, thank you for joining us. Today, I'm joined by Tamir White, Director of Marketing at Oro Commerce, Kevin Katzenmeyer, VP of Strategic Border Business Enablement at TradeCentric, and Michael Eichinger, Chief Operating Officer at Bay Fasting Systems. Today, we're going to focus in on one of the core challenges, one of the core operating principles, one of the core business strategies that goes to the heart and soul of B2B, and that's omnichannel. So there's a lot that's new, there's a lot that's old, but the takeaway, I think, from our expert panel here, and we're going to get into it in just a minute, is that there's a lot going on. And it's going to be driven by connected commerce and AI, and everybody, I think, agrees with that, and we're going to unpack it for those out there on our webinar today to talk about that. But we'll unpack some key findings from the State of B2B Omnichannel Best Practices Report, which we just did and just released, and thank you for reading that. And we'll explore how top B2B companies are building unified, data-driven experiences across 5 or more channels. We'll dive into logistics, marketing, technology strategies, what's happening behind the firewall, behind the scenes, so to speak. And then we're going to get into what the buyers are really looking for, which is increasingly personalized content and synchronized sales right down to real-time inventory and last mile delivery. A couple housekeeping notes before we get going. We'll take questions at the end of the presentation, but you can ask them at any time by using the chat box on the right side of your screen. You can also use that box to let us know of any technical questions or difficulties you may have, and somebody will help you out and straighten us out to kind of get you where you need to be on the webinar here. So with that, B2B omnichannel is accelerating. And the trends behind why it's accelerating remain kind of about the same. A younger B2B buying team, a younger B2B purchasing managing team, if you will. They are very much digitally driven. They like self-service, but they want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to go across channel. And depending upon whose numbers you look at, ours, McKinsey's, Forrester's, on down the line here, those B2B buyers go 3, 5, 7, 11 across channels. As Kevin knows, and as Tamir knows, and as Michael knows, what can begin as an e-commerce transaction can become punch out, can become branch, can become all 3. So all of that has been accelerating on the buyer side for quite a few years now. That trend line is established. Those are the key principles and growth drivers of what's happening with B2B omnichannel. That's the fundamentals. Now, what's changing here, fast and furious, is the rate and the speed at which AI and connected commerce are driving the changes that business buyers want, how fast they want to change the frequency of the channels they use, and all that's hitting the B2B seller square where it counts. And that, for a lot of organizations, remains the big challenge. So yes, the sellers got the memo. They know what the buyers want. It's being accelerated by AI and connected commerce, but a lot to do there. And we're going to get right into it. So Tamir, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and your thoughts, your top line thoughts on omnichannel and B2B these days, if you would.
Sure. So hi, everyone. My name's Tamir White. I lead marketing at Oro Commerce, which is a B2B platform specializing in manufacturing and distribution. Prior to Oro, I worked at BigCommerce and then a large systems integrator. So I've had a lot of exposure to how companies are implementing technology all the way from data center security to now a much more exciting topic of B2B e-commerce. Our founders at Oro actually funded Magento, and they really saw a need in the market for something that can handle business complexities. So that's really where we come in. One of the biggest takeaways for omnichannel would just be, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot, is really keeping it simple, and the fact that you can buy technology, but you cannot buy alignment. And if you don't have alignment across teams and just a simple one data source to focus on, you are not going to succeed in omnichannel.
And Kevin, can you introduce yourself and give us a few top line thoughts on what you focusing with omnichannel?
Sure. So again, Kevin Kazmaier, Vice President of Business Enablement, and what I do for TradeCentric is we provide business enablement strategies for both our customers and suppliers and buyers within our network to help them build and grow to allow basically two different systems to connect to each other. So you think about the e-commerce side of the equation that Tamir just spoke about, but there's also this e-procurement or this spend management platform on your customers or buyer side. And basically we help customers understand each other so they can, suppliers sell their products to those buyers who want to shop and order seamlessly. So ultimately we help suppliers provide a better buying experience that ultimately results in happier customers and achieving faster revenue growth. And if you think about that, right, from an omnichannel experience, Punch Out, which is the cornerstone of it, is showcasing your catalog within your customer's procurement platform, and just e-procurement integration in general of getting electronic purchase orders, invoices, and order notifications. They open the door to a channel that isn't really always widely known or understood, and yet it provides significant opportunity to grow revenue and really accommodate your buyers' purchasing preferences and their workflows that allow them to become more loyal customers and long-time customers.
And Michael, let's hear from you and Bay and your thoughts on this.
Well, okay, Mike Leikinger, I'm Chief Operating Officer for Bay Fastening Systems. We are a traditional industrial fastener distribution company. This goes back to 1962, so the company started with that face-to-face, you know, kind of sales calls that took place, feet in the street. As I started in 2010, and that's when, the moment I started, the first thing I started to do was to compile our data, because I looked at it as the future was digital. You know, at that time, you just saw what was happening to B2C. So my efforts started in 2010 and evolved to, you know, go through the digital transformation, to bring in different strategies that would allow us to identify ways that we need to create that omnichannel experience. One of the things early on that we identified was that we needed to provide a buyer experience online that would mimic the same experience they would have offline. And if we could not duplicate that process, we were going to fail in our digital efforts. So a lot of that came down to standardization of our data, standardization of our pricing algorithms, how we wanted to manage our data across the board for all of our products, and how that would reflect internally and externally so that we could serve the customer in a uniform fashion. And that became something we knew we wanted to do, but it became more critical. It became more obvious how critical that was as time went on. And the evolution that took place beyond that was identifying, as you go through your platform, as you go through your journey, you realize that every business has unique needs. And the technology wasn't quite there for B2B. It was emerging. Everybody was B2B specialists when it was hot, but nobody really was B2B. There was no quantity break discount pricing. There was no contract pricing. So a lot of that emerged. And as time went on, we kind of embraced all of that, built for the future, what we wanted to do with the next evolution of the platform. And it's emerged to the point now where, you know, we've capitalized on enough business that we have a digital brand that people recognize, but we needed to evolve to a much larger picture for our customer base. And that's when we brought B2B Marketplace into the equation, which is the final stage. I shouldn't say final stage because I don't think it ever ends, but it's a stage we're at now where we're building an online digital marketplace for the fastener industry. It's a vertical marketplace. And in the process of that, we were acquired, and we have a group of companies that there's 700 some odd around the globe, but there's about 35 in North America. And what I realized is that nearly all of them have no real strong digital strategy in place. So our goal is to build an intranet for those companies to build that strategy. So the evolution of our marketplace has now led to building an intranet for an organization in which we can then leverage our marketplace to sell product. And that's kind of where I'm at in this. And I see omnichannel as a play that is now being completely disrupted by new technologies.
And it's going to keep on rolling down the pike here. So let's jump into it. Our first question is going to actually address, what's happening with AI and omnichannel. But you know what? We don't believe in having bumps on a log here. So let's do it. Let's do a quick poll here. See what our audience is really up to and what they think about this. So can we show our first? Here's our first question for the poll. What are the biggest? That's something away. What are the biggest opportunity for AI in your business today? Personalizing buyer interactions, forecasting demand inventory, automating customer service, or dynamic pricing and promotions. So let's give our audience here just a minute or two to vote. I mean, just about 30 seconds to vote here. So audience, please vote. Okay, can we see some results? Oh, interesting. Well, I gotta tell you, this is right in lockstep with the single biggest research metric I keep seeing in omnichannel for a few years here, which is 73% personalized buying interaction, followed by 18% automated customer service, 9% forecasting demand and inventory. So that begs our first question, which are, how are leading B2B companies using AI tools, from personalization engines to predictive inventory planning, to reduce frictions as buyers move across multiple channels? And Tamir, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first, it's nice to see that many of the B2C functionality, like the personalized content, product recommendations, is now advanced enough to support B2B buying. But where I've seen the most reduction in friction has been around portal agents or assisted selling, where a buyer can log into the portal, ask about a past order or invoice, ask for product recommendation, and get an instant answer, instead of having to call the sales rep having to look through many different sources to get that data and then get back to the customer.
And Kevin, what are your thoughts on that?
So if you think about the channel that we really participate in, it's probably going to be slower to adopt, just because there's this middle connection between the buyer and what they want and the supplier and what they want. And so if I go directly to a supplier's commerce site and I want to start interacting with an agent or utilizing some sort of AI, there's a lot that needs to be done, like Tamir just mentioned, behind the scenes to enable your content to allow that assisted browsing, the assisted search, enablement, pricing, and inventory availability. But what we need to see then is how that gets moved to the punch out site, right? And is presented up front in the punch out. But then even as the next iteration is what happens when you remove that piece and they just want to start with a conversation in the procurement system and hit the supplier system without that middle connection, right? And that's really where it comes in. How do you provide better data and more rich content and build the right APIs to build that foundation?
Michael, as always, we're thrilled to have you here. And we asked you for a reason, which is this ain't your first B2B e-commerce rodeo. You and Bay tend to move out faster than a lot of your peers, I think, in distribution land, to try things, from a B2B commerce technology perspective. And that's why I want to kind of get your thoughts on AI as it applies to B2B omnichannel. But here's my twist for you, which I always have for you, my friend. No question that AI is expediting, omnichannel experience for, B2B buyers, but agents and agentic, which is all the rage everywhere, is coming square at the nose from folks like you in distribution land. So are you seeing AI omnichannel as a complete disruption and game changer, or just a very expedited way and maybe the best way to solve specific problems omnichannel has been around for a long time? What do you think, especially the agentic part of all this?
Yeah, okay, well, thank you for what you said about, and thank you for having me today. I will tell you, this is not my first rodeo, but I will also tell you, like I said before we got on this call, that I used to have a lot more hair. This has been a journey, and it is never ending, and it's always throwing curveballs. The agentic side of things, I can say, where we started to bring things in, and I was kind of shocked by some of the capabilities of what we can do, was developing our software and looking at, online chat as an evolution for sales teams, right? So online chat would take away from the phone. It provided direct communication with a team of people, and it provided instant answers for people online. But it became burdensome to some degree for a team of people to answer a lot of questions and pass these online chats around, whether it's a customer service related issue on an order, or whether it's tied to a product specification or an application or a compatibility. So looking at AI now, we're working right now on implementing, aside from AI search, which I think is inevitably a need for improved search for all B2B websites, but bringing AI search into the equation, it kind of merges with the online chat experience. So these AI agent assistants allow answers to come up. It could be downloading a spec sheet. It could be looking at product compatibility. It could be getting a catalog. It could be taking you right to a URL page to purchase something. It could be looking at the status of an order. If it's tied into your data systems correctly, you can actually use this to kind of not eliminate the need for people on the chat, but to provide the user the option at any time to communicate with someone, but at the same time, the agent can mitigate a lot of noise and give people instant answers. So AI there is a strong element in what we're going to see in the evolution of site use, and that does tie into personalization as well. It knows who is online asking the question. So we take it from that to maybe AI agents in content creation. We know that people are using AI to create content, but when we look at blog content and optimizing old blog content, or creating AI-friendly AEO, AI engine optimization, there are different techniques that can be used using AI to implement new AI coding to assist in this. So AI is coming through, not only that I saw on the customer side of things from online chat, but an online service, but it also comes into play in optimizing data, in streamlining ways that you can leverage this data. And really, it goes beyond that, because in developing custom software, we look at, well, in our industry, it's quote generation. In the industry, there's people quoting all day long, and they're bouncing from website to website, email to email, and it's an antiquated process. And now bringing an automated quote system into play that leverages AI to streamline that process for people is another element we bring into the situation. On top of that, there's content translation for multi-language that, used to be very costly to do before. So it's just in every aspect, it's just disrupting every aspect of what we're used to and what we're going to expect.
But going down the rabbit hole, just way more here, which is there have been silos in B2B for so long as we've all been in it, that many are still there. Yet, thanks to new technologies for AI and connected commerce, and I think, Kevin, you're seeing where I'm going with this, which is there's new ways to kind of break down the silos to enable that faster omnichannel that the B2B buyers want, and the sellers must deliver. My favorite metric for this stuff is just how unforgiving B2B buyers are. They will do their research way ahead of time, and they may even research your site for a month before they even give you a try to see if you have what they want. That's how particular these guys get, especially when you're talking about a purchasing team that likes a lot more self-service today than they did just more, say, 5 years ago. But so with that in mind, Kevin, what does connected commerce look like in practice for a distributor or manufacturer? And can you share examples of how companies are linking commerce, marketplaces, sales reps, and let's say mobile apps into a single buyer journey to the heart of personalization, which we just talked about?
Well, so it's an interesting question, right? And I think based on what Michael was just talking about, a lot of it starts with having a really good tech stack and being prepared, right? You'd be surprised at how many tech stacks aren't even there yet, and they are thinking about ways to meet their customers' need, but they haven't even started with getting their data right yet. But really, when you think about the connected commerce side of it, it starts with meeting your customers where they want to buy, right? And in many cases, it's some back-end procurement, purchasing, e-procurement, spend management system, whatever you want to call it, right? It's where they're shopping, it's where they're starting their experience, it's where all of their internal buyers and users are used to procuring products, right? That's the channel they want to belong in and start in. So you must be able to showcase your products and what you're doing on your site today and in your commerce experience. You need to be able to showcase that through a punch-out catalog within these platforms, right? But it doesn't stop there, because that's great to showcase the products and serve up available inventory and the accurate pricing. But if you're not taking an order electronically and seamlessly handling that and providing an integrated invoice, you're causing a lot of inconvenience to those customers as well, right? There's something in your report, Mark, that mentions price being the most important from a buyer perspective, but many buyers still can't see their supplier's correct and accurate price because they don't show up in their customer's procurement platform. So if you connect and you leverage that capability and all the work that you've done in your e-commerce platform, and you're able to make that show up and appear in your buyer's procurement platform, you're enabling a whole set of users, a whole channel that you may not even knew existed before, right? And the most successful organizations, they treat procurement as a channel, but they bring together their sales team, they align all their internal teams, their finance teams, because they want to make sure that that experience is seamless, that everybody knows how to talk about their preferred channel, and that if they need to do it, like I'll give you a great example. We have a customer that utilizes stores and branches to allow customers to shop. So they don't stop a customer from shopping in their store because they order on an e-procurement system. But what they've done is they found a way to say, I'll take the order in the store or in our branch, but I will still feed that back to your e-procurement system so you can create a purchase order, and I will still create an electronic invoice. So I make that experience seamless for you and eliminate all the duplicate effort. So now you're allowing them to go through multiple channels, but still connect back into their e-procurement. And
one of the reasons I love talking with people like you folks on platforms like this is because you are in the trenches doing it. So from Oro's perspective, connected commerce, what are you seeing from the application development services side, and then what are your customers saying they want in the way of connected commerce to expedite their omnichannel experience on the B2B side?
Well, I think, is the thing with connected commerce is a lot of it sounds very woo-woo, and like, yes, of course, we want everything to connect with each other, but like our data is not going to be fixed, or this integration isn't going to work. So I think like the biggest thing just in general that we see, especially with customers that come to us, is that they've purchased so much technology and have so many integrations that now they're trying to just figure out how to back into that. And they look at, okay, we have 15 ERPs and multiple CRMs. How do we now even figure out how to connect it all? And that's where, again, it goes back to the simplicity and starting small with just ensuring you have this one source of truth, whether it be your e-commerce, ERP, or whatever it is, and then building off of that. But a big pain point that stops people from connected commerce in general is the amount of technology that they buy that they think is going to improve their connected commerce, but it actually inhibits it.
So Michael, what are your thoughts? I mean, connected commerce is more than a buzzword. I mean, it's coming, but how do you see it from a distribution perspective? Fact, fiction, coming, not coming? What's your thoughts on that?
Connected commerce is, all of this falls into the technology challenge. It's where Tamir is right about, you can buy all the software, you can buy all the platforms, but they still have to integrate with each other. And it's a big process to, it's hard to find an all-in-one solution. It doesn't exist, but you can combine these technologies. There's ways to pass data along. If you've got a CRM, you need to make sure it's connected to your information, not just customer information, but order information. You need to tie that into marketing, digital marketing, and personalization. These ways to leverage data, it all comes into the connected side of your tech stack, and how you're going to use this information to create a cohesive environment. So that is a big challenge. But when we talk about digital currency, digital buying, right? In Europe, it's so common for companies to buy electronic, pay digitally and end it. We still receive checks in the mail. We still have people that are not dealing with the embracing digital commerce altogether. It's evolving in the US at a much slower rate, but it's getting there. But I think when you start, when you look at where we are in the US, we tend to move much slower than the rest of the world in embracing all of this technology, but it's all coming. So, the idea of how you start, it depends on where you are in this journey, right? I mean, one thing, omnichannel is one thing, right? You want to provide the customer with the ability to do business with you, no matter how they choose to do it. That's omnichannel. The question is, can you do it in a way that is seamless and it provides a uniform experience for them? That's a challenge in and of itself. Beyond that, it comes down to, now, how do we personalize our information to these customers? How do we leverage marketing information to these customers? How do we now build in better ways for people to transact orders with us and maintain that financial communication with them? And how do we do that in an omni-channel experience? So it's an evolution, and it depends on where you are. If you try and take it all on, if you're starting in your digital journey, you need to start from the base, which is simple digital process, digital business, but make it as close to what you're doing offline as possible and move from there. But I think that it's inevitable that every organization has no choice but to embrace this omni-channel and digital commerce.
You know what? I got to tell you, one thing we are not slow at is polling our studio audience on what's happening with them. So as we kind of get into our deeper discussion on omni-channel here, we'd like to kind of hear from what's out there in the marketplace. So what is your top priority for omni-channel strategy in the next 12 months? Improving e-commerce experience, expanding digital sales channels, marketplaces, apps, investing in AI personalization, that's going to be interesting, or aligning internal teams and data. So if our audience could vote, we'll show the results here in just a little bit. I can hear those keyboards clicking and those phones tapping. Okay, can we see some results, please? Interesting. Okay, so the question once again is, what is your top priority for omnichannel in the next 12 months? 30%. Interesting. Expanding digital sales channels at 30%. 20%. Oh, I'm sorry. Our top one. Oh, this is a good. I'm going to like this one. 40%. My apologies. Aligning internal teams and data. 30%. Expanding digital sales channels. 20%. Improving, investing in AI and personalization, and 10% improving e-commerce experience. So this is interesting because this goes to the heart and soul of our next question, which is data integration. So Tamir, let's start with you, if we can. So data, always a problem, always been a problem, going to be a problem. But the thing is, if your data is not in order, and it's siloed, you're not going to pull off e-commerce in any kind of viable way. And more importantly, in this whole new brave new world of things being agent oriented and agentic oriented, if your house is not in order and your rich catalog is not there for these new agents about to hit your way, well, then I think you're going to have some trouble kind of getting out of the starting gate. But having backgrounded that, what are your thoughts on this? Integrating customer data across fragmented systems is a top challenge. And as we just heard from our attendees here, are real priorities. So from Oral's perspective, what strategies or technologies are proving most effective in creating a unified 360-degree customer view? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. So this is kind of our bread and butter, and it's really around having the system that unifies everything and automated workflows. The automated workflows is key in having that in a system. I don't want to say solves all of the problems, but does help solve a lot of the issues right now. So it doesn't matter. The nice thing with having a unified system, especially when you have a CRM attached to your system, is that it doesn't matter, again, if you have 15 ERPs or if you have one of our customers has 25 ERPs, like it all kind of connects and works seamlessly together.
Kevin, one of the reasons we love having you and TradeCentric on these kinds of discussions is I call your pipeline, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm correct on this, which is I believe that because you have every major procurement and spend management platform coming through TradeCentric, you folks look at a transaction pipeline that I think is valued in what? Excess of 1 trillion? It's a big number, correct?
Hundreds of millions, yeah.
You folks see a lot of you folks see a lot of data. So that's why I think your answer to this question is very important, which is you're looking at data, you're transacting data, it's coming from all these big back-end systems. So what are you seeing in terms of trends, good, bad, or sideways, with data integration as it relates to these new technologies as it comes down to expedited B2B omnichannel?
Well, so I mean, I mentioned it a couple of times, but I think a lot of it starts with clean, consistent product data, right? It's making sure that your PIM is very accurate and that your systems that feed that, right, from a pricing and inventory perspective are up to date and as accurate as possible. Because what we see in these transactions and what we end up doing for a lot of companies is trying to fill the gap for them, right? Because they did not address it in the tech stack like Michael has, right? They haven't been able to capture the unique bits of information. So they end up having to turn to a middleware to, I guess, capture the key points that they really need to be able to provide back to their customer. So their customer has that rich data set, right? So the enrichment piece of it is huge. The other piece here, and to answer the poll, it's really getting alignment at the top of your organization, right? And I think what we've seen sometimes is just there'll be someone anointed as the project lead, a head of digital, to run the playbook, but they do it without any support. And so we feel that, and we know that when the CFO has visibility, the COO has visibility, and then even the CEO, when they're involved and they see all the systems and touch points and what a good program looks like with rich data and sharing across the organization, that is the most successful programs.
Tamir, I noticed you're kind of really nodding agreeing with Kevin there. So I think you've got some additional thoughts on getting buy-in from top management. So do you have some thoughts to share on that? Maybe even a best practice or two for how people can do that better?
Yes, I mean, it's so wild still just sometimes how like people buy technology and don't think about the culture around that technology and the adoption and implementation. And like Kevin said, a lot of times will be either one team or one lead who's responsible for the technology or the change, but it's not cross-functionally aligned. So the people that are doing this, or the companies that are doing this very well, kind of have, I would say, 3 things in common. And usually that's one, they cross-functionally have a shared goal and shared they kind of look at the same numbers, and are their performance is based on that shared goal. And then, so usually they have one dashboard that they all look at it. On the sales side, typically it's just sales looks, they ensure that sales has the same data on their end and from what they have online. And then on the marketing side, that there's alignment there in terms of what inventory is provided. But then it's really hard to kind of, if the teams don't all work together, it's really difficult to then integrate everything. And a lot of time we see silos between marketing's trying to make it work, but they're doing it on their own. Sales is trying to do it on their own. And then there's so many different teams trying to do the same thing with no success. So it really comes top down, but everyone has to be invested in it as a culture. Like, the culture is key.
Michael, I want you to tell us a story, my friend. And, Michael and Bay were very kind enough to kind of give us some very detailed information and case studies for our B2B Omnichannel report. And Michael, can you talk about heart and soul of our data integration question here? I believe that Bay had a data challenge, and you came up with something, and then not only did it help you at what you folks do at Bay, but I believe that you took that to your wider colleagues across your new global organization, and now you're kind of helping them do the same thing. So that's the premise, but can you kind of give us the story about what you did, how you did it on data integration when it comes to omnichannel, and then how you're rolling it out to your colleagues to kind of give them a better way to do something? Good war story, my friend.
Yeah, well, going back 2010, I think it was grab as many catalogs as you can and manually collect data on specifications and products in order to start your digital process. But and believe it or not, people are still doing that today. Manufacturers aren't really caught up digitally, but as we've captured this information and time has evolved, it's where you store that data, how you manage that data, how do you normalize that data. That was a challenge because we needed to gather as much information as we can and then figure out where to store it. And that's where, Kevin had mentioned a PIM. But it depends on where you are in your journey. A PIM can be an expensive move for somebody that's early stage, but it is inevitably the place you need to be. A PIM is going to allow you to better manage your product data, normalize your product data. And as time went on, we started to look at how we could integrate PIM with AI. And AI is a blessing for this approach. It allows the capability for us to build rules, business rules, to establish data normalization. And one of the problems we had was product building, building a new product through multiple systems, and also capturing all of these values was still a manual process. With the element of AI, we're establishing an automated product onboarding system. So, literally the information is injected and it's auto mapped to all of the attribute specifications, all the descriptions. And this is leading to a rapid build, lower requirement for data management staff for data. And now that staff that we have can focus on optimizing and enriching our data even more beyond the AI capability. So this is the evolution we've taken. Now, doing this for our marketplace became critical because we've recognized that the manufacturers that are onboarding onto our marketplace and the distributors that are onboarding, they have limited information. They either have ERP descriptions that are limited to 30 characters, a description line, or they have no attributes broken out in specifications, or it's built into a long description. And it's a lot of work for us to work with them to build their products out in our marketplace quickly. So now we can onboard AI, utilizing this AI element in PIM allows us to onboard products in an automated fashion, instantaneously. So this has led to when our company was bought out by a company out of France, but the main group is called the Ficus Group, and there's about 35 companies. And the idea was to establish a pilot program because now you have all of these companies that have brands, products, sales, inventory, and nobody knows what the other guy is doing. So the idea is to build that intranet, that marketplace just internally for these companies to cross-sell, to gain access to inventory, and then to ultimately transact business between each other in order to expand the footprint of products for the customer bases in a large, wide geography. And in doing this, we recognize that we have to deal with language barriers. So using AI for oral translation on everything that gets injected on an automated basis, building out this, it could not happen at this rate and speed without AI coming into play. So I think, you know, for people that are looking at data management, yeah, it's great. It's great to have a PIM. It's an optimal approach to managing your data, but the ability to leverage AI for data normalization and to eliminate having to have data entry people cleaning things, which ultimately ends up corrupting things at the same time. So getting your data straight and in line is critical, but now there are opportunities for companies to expedite this much faster and save on labor costs to do so.
What I love about here though is that what's the metaphor, the you know, teach a fisherman to fish kind of thing, you know. So that's why I love that story. But we also love punch out. And so Kevin, this one's for you. Punch out catalogs and e-procurement integrations are critical for large enterprise buyers of all sorts. How are B2B sellers balancing the need to support new workflows while still driving traffic to their e-commerce sites? So basically the integration of what's happening with punch out and e-procurement that you're seeing from your perspective. Because that's a big omnichannel challenge there.
Well, it is, and I think a lot of it is really how you look at it, right, and how you want to measure it. So from an enterprise buyer perspective, I think something like 98% of the Fortune 100 companies are utilizing some sort of e-procurement tool to place orders. And a lot more focus now is going from the indirect and tail spend to now incorporating direct, and how can I bring as much spend under management? So, you know, everybody it has to start to compete. They have to start to show up, right? And basically suppliers that don't meet the buyers where they want to transact, they risk losing those customers. So it comes back to punch out. But the goal is you're not really losing out traffic from your commerce, you're just redirecting them, right? So if you treat punch out and e-procurement as just another channel of your digital channel, right? You're still keeping more customers on the digital experience that you built and curated and add personalization to. And as much as you can extend all of those capabilities and functionalities out to the punch out site, the revenue basically will grow because now you're meeting more customers and you're hitting people that didn't have the time or don't want their users logging into your e-commerce site, but now you're giving them a way to hit your e-commerce site within their own platform, right? So it becomes really key only because when you show up that way, you gain a valuable piece of real estate in that customer's platform. And when they log in every day and they want to place an order, they see your icon, they see your logo, and they see that they can start shopping from your catalog with a click of a button. So that seamless connection, again, allows you to stay stickier, right? And drive more business through a channel, but also it's ultimately your digital channel and it's coming through your commerce and following the rest of the flows you built and created for that platform.
I want to kind of
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, Mark, that Kevin, the other side that on what you're saying, the stickiness, I think that what I noticed with B2B buyers is that it's not always price, right? I think actually what comes higher as priority is convenience factor, right? And a lot of these organizations, the freedom to buy, when you're part of their system, it gives them freedom to buy, and the convenience factor is right there. So I do see the element in convenience being the bigger driver for these companies, for these people that are working all day procuring. They just want to be able to find it, buy it, and they're not always focused on price.
Exactly. I think, and that we've seen that a lot, right? And I think a McKinsey study a couple of years ago referenced a point that a buyer that is inconvenienced and does not have a supplier that meets them in their digital channel, they're like 90% inclined to switch to a new supplier that does meet them. I mean, and we have a great example of a supplier that provided a part that nobody would really think of, right? So they're providing products to car washes, and you wouldn't think of that as a typical e-procurement channel, but they had a need, they met that need, and what ended up happening was that customer said, you're making my business so much easier, and you're taking so much steps out of the process that you're going to be, I'm removing the other suppliers out of the mix. Like, you're my sole provider now. And they found that so successful that they started to grow into more and more connections because they were becoming that sole provider because they made it so much easier to use.
But I want to pivot back to Oro here on an important point, which is, Tamir, you were talking just a little while ago about achieving buy-in, from top management. But I think that goes down the organizational chart a little bit more. So our question for you is aligning sales, marketing, logistics. From synchronized content to real-time order tracking, how are companies aligning their sales, marketing, and logistics teams to deliver experiences that are consistent across sometimes 5 or more channels? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love this topic specifically because when it goes again around the cross-functional accountability and having the shared goals, so revenue, pipeline, inventory, fulfillment, all kind of being viewed by the same team. But then one of the most overlooked things is, especially when marketing runs campaigns, is ensuring that they're gating the campaigns based on inventory. So a lot of the friction that we see specifically with sales and marketing is that if marketing wants to promote a free next day delivery on like 500 units for a part, but there's only 200 in inventory, that campaign is paused before it launches. And a lot of times we see that that's not even a thought process. So a lot of times marketing will launch these promotions, and then sales gets calls from customers because the inventory isn't there. And even worse, sometimes when marketing does do the due diligence, it's simply that the inventory data isn't even accurate. So it's really just making sure that you slow down and really marketing. And I'm in marketing, so I understand this, but this is where I think it's like the most overlooked issue, is just you have to make sure that everyone's looking at the right data before you launch campaigns.
Do you have a best practice you could recommend for how folks could do that better?
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, I don't want to say it's simple, because simple always it's easier said than done. But we've had a customer that they simply just started launching daily meetings. They created a dashboard that goes through the inventory, the main promotions, the pipeline. They all have a shared goal around reoccurring purchases. And this was kind of a big campaign that they focused on launching. It was kind of like a pilot program. And they met daily before they launched any promotion with the fulfillment teams to ensure that the inventory is available, and then gave sales a heads up that this campaign is running, and then they would monitor the progress that way. So then they were able to avoid those daily meetings and create automated email updates to the sales team and to the broader organization of what's going on. So they kind of started off small and scrappy by having to meet regularly and daily, to then they just started creating like an automated engine for how they're launching campaigns. And with that, I mean, I really wanted to ask kind of Michael, especially on the data side, because it sounds like you've done a lot of things to improve just the overall experience, but especially when you went through a lot of mergers and acquisitions, were there other stakeholders that maybe said they weren't bought in, or how did you get the pushback, and what did you do about it?
Yeah, well, early on, the pushback was a company. I started with a company that had no marketing budget. So trying to explain that we need to invest in e-commerce was difficult. Our vendors were coming in and saying our products will never sell online, and so it was tough. But there was the initial push to get it staged. But I think the way I planned it out, to the best of my ability, was to track sales online and offline. So I separated the type of class of order that would go on, and I would be able to see where it was coming from, but then I was able to show the trajectory of sales. And while it might not look good to see a trade-off for offline sales while the online sales are growing, the other side of it is it started to both grow. And it all was due to the fact that our only initiatives in marketing were digital. So digital was growing our business offline as well as online. So it wasn't just, so I always had to present the numbers in, this is our online, this is our offline, this is how much our digital, initiatives have built our business offline. Because as long as that is there, then management can buy in, because they say, it's true. How could we change that? Our sales are talking online chat with customers. We're getting orders through e-commerce. We have customers placing orders on the online channel and then also placing orders offline. So we're giving people the ability to process orders any way they want. And that was kind of the buy-in. And as time went on and the investments increased and the stack increased, it all became justified based on just the trajectory of things taking place. So I think buy-in comes down to how you present the information and how you track the information. And most people are looking at, well, how much did our website generate in business? If you're only looking at that, you're not looking at the whole picture. And I think that was the big buy-in. Now with the takeover, the company that took us over looked at our expenses in our investments in technology, and they were a little shocked at the amount of money that we spent, considering they have hundreds of other companies that don't spend anything practically on e-commerce. But they recognized the trajectory, and the presentations that I gave during the due diligence was on these trajectories that I've maintained in our graphs and our charts on the progression. So it justified the investment. And that's what led to them saying, okay, well, now maybe we should invest and do a pilot program in the North America and try and do this, because you're the only one that showed us a track for success, in e-commerce. So it comes down to, if you're going to do it and you're going to get the weigh-in from the C-suite, you have to have the data to share with your team. You have to be able to show everybody the progress that's taking place. And, there's no pushback when you have that.
So I want to kind of pivot. I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to add to that, because I feel like that's the a place that we see a big miss that Michael called out is, it's not always the revenue growth, but it's also the operational savings. It's what you can do. So you're doing so much more with less, and you're able to drive more success, which will drive that revenue number. But that investment also probably resulted in a lot less bodies being thrown at it, I would say, Michael, right?
80%. We analyzed out that the order processing saved us 80% of our time and staff, and they love the fact that it automates through the system. They're not doing any manual entry. Orders processed right through. They just do a quick review, and pass it out. Yeah, so that got customer service embracing the idea of digital orders.
And Tamir, any final thoughts on this one?
No, I mean, just amazing to hear that. It's great.
Well, time flies, and we could keep everybody here all day long, but this is our final question. And so I'd like to kind of go round robin on this. I kind of call it our lightning round. And Michael, we're going to start with you, and then Kevin, we're going to pivot to you, and then Tamir, you're going to have the last kind of final thought on our final question here. But basically, this is kind of the best practice question, which is always fun to leave people with some takeaways they can go back and begin doing. But let's start with Kevin. Based on the state of B2B Omnichannel Best Practices Report, which says this is faster, quicker, AI-driven, what do the most advanced companies get right, whether in technology, culture, or customer experience, that others can learn from? What are your thoughts on that?
So I'll start by just saying that we published a buyer psychology ebook, and it's it talks about a lot of what the buyer behaviors are and what buyers value. And the companies that are most successful understand what their buyers value the most, right? Delivering the right product at the right price through the right channel with the least amount of effort on their part, right? Where they can also maximize ROI and the long-term value of being connected to this supplier. And those organizations then look at connected commerce or e-procurement integration as a first-class channel in their omni-channel roadmap. And they embed that integration thought process early across the organization so that their sales team is going to market as a preferred channel, and it runs in lockstep with their e-commerce and their marketplace strategy, right? And then they're also working on centralizing all the data and aligning these teams so that there's a frictionless experience no matter which channel they choose, and that data is always ever present for them to act on and learn and really gain insights to how they transact with that supplier.
And Tamir, let's go to you for the final thought here, which is, so once again, basically, what do most advanced companies get right when it comes to B2B omnichannel technology, business strategy, whether in technology, culture, or customer experience, that others can learn from? So the final takeaway for today is yours. What do you think?
Honestly, I mean, Kevin summed it up very nicely. So everything that Kevin said with just some more emphasis on the culture and just ensuring that you're not just doing random acts of implementation just to do them, and that you really understand the purpose of what you're trying to do. And that again comes top down.
I got to tell you, this has been one fascinating hour with some real subject matter experts on not just what's happening with B2B omnichannel, but basically best practices as this stuff happens even more because it's driven by AI and connected commerce. So thank you, Tamir, Kevin, Michael, for joining us today, and to Trade Centric and Oral Commerce for sponsoring this webinar. Thank you also for our audience for attending. So a full replay of this webinar will be available on our website tomorrow. Once today's session wraps up, I know people out there are being hit with surveys, but I got to tell you, we appreciate the feedback. So a window will appear on your screen. If you have a moment, please share your thoughts. They will help us kind of give you what you want, which is better data analysis technology and experts like our folks here. And with that, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time and questions and your insight. And we look forward to seeing you on our next Digital Commerce 360 webinar. Thank you once again, Kevin, Michael, and Tamir, and thank you for attending today.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.